Hello, and welcome back for part 2 of Daryl's series on drawing with greater accuracy. In today's presentation, Daryl's going to continue to show you how you can pick any point on your reference photo and transfer it to your drawing paper. He's also going to show you how to start connecting those points, connecting the dots, if you will, to create the most accurate portraits or drawings possible. So, stick around, we've got a lot of awesome insight to share today. All right, Daryl, I want to jump right back in and get started, but just as a reminder, we are talking about your favorite method for accurately laying out a drawing, and that is using your straight edge and divider method. And you just started telling us about how we can find any points we want on a reference image and accurately transfer those to our drawing paper. So, Daryl, let's just jump right back in and pick up where we left off.
So we were talking about how to find those reference points that are going to intersect that horizontal line. And I wanted to just mention this because I'm not sure whether I emphasize this, but it's so important in that the horizontal line, I did mention it in this respect, is not absolutely horizontal to the paper. And that's because I was able to go ahead and put my reference down, and I want to try and capture this. Remember, we want this reference to be in the same orientation as our drawing. So I decided to pick what is going to give me as many of the important places to intersect that line with. And I often will do it through the eyes from corner to corner, and then naturally that's going to help me pick out the place that's over here in the far right and over in the far left, and where maybe her temple is here, and obviously the different aspects of her eyes. Maybe if anything intersects it, it would be the eyelid and the iris on both sides, and anything that goes through that line. And as we looked at this is one that I made sure that we had the exact same or the original lines that I put through. I decided it all before I started my drawing. So the thing about this is it's not a horizontal line, a perfectly horizontal level line. It's got a tilt to it. And this is really exciting because it helps me have one more opportunity to catch that little personality, that mood, or whatever she has going that is her character and the way that she is. She has her head tilted a little bit. And if I can establish that, I have one more opportunity to make sure that I've really captured her character and personality and her attitude and everything. The demeanor, the way she's looking right now is maybe in reaction to what she's looking at. And some of those things are really important to communicate in a portrait. But it's going to be something that you want to have for many different subjects. It could be the tilt of the head of a dog. You know how they cock their head, one way or the other, and it just has that special something that we can add to our drawings that give us a little more personal touch to it. So as I looked at this, I drew that line through here, and then I just wanted to emphasize that because that's why it's not perfectly horizontal. And that's a good thing. If I tried to straighten this up and I don't pay any attention to this, then I'm going to be, having something else not in the same relation to it as far as proportion, or the angles are always supposed to be true, and so something else is going to have to be skewed as well. And then I'm going to have a hard time interpreting my picture. So when I'm looking at my subject, I want to notice those little things. If I was just looking at it and drawing freehand, I want to learn to start watching for those little tilts, those little angles. And angles are so important. They're such a wonderful indication of how to capture, again, your subject in a special way and accurately. And so let's go ahead, we'll go out a little bit, and remember that we were rotating our going around the perimeter of our drawing paper with our reference. And one of the things you might want to do, I made this probably a little smaller in relationship to what would be good to see, all the little points. If you have a hard time seeing the little tiny things, and you have plenty of room where you're working, and you have maybe that that 2-foot long, straight edge instead of the 18-inch, then by all means do this a little bigger, because if you can see these things clearly, then you're going to be able to pinpoint the exact placement of a dot, or where you want to be able to use as an anchor point. So, but for here, I know on the camera it might be a little hard for us to see all the things I'm pointing to accurately, but the principle is there, and so I want you to really pay attention to that. And if, again, you need to print this a little bigger and start out with this bearing line on here, if you go and you try to duplicate this on another one, you want to really value this, whatever one you're going to use to plot everything. You don't want to just go and think, okay, I'll just go ahead and redo that all on here, because again, remember, this is square to itself. And if you didn't do it exactly in the same right angles, and it doesn't end up being exactly accurate to this one in the way it's being cut, then we are going to end up by having something a little off if we just grab something else and just start with a whole new reference picture. So anyway, all I'm saying is it's going to be very important for you to go ahead and keep track of this until you're finished drawing. So let's go ahead and find a couple more things on this reference point, and you can see what I'm talking about. I have to get the camera out so far you're not going to be able to see exactly, but let me tell you that this is the point. I'll try and describe it. I'm going to go to where her iris is. You remember, if we pivot on our anchor point, this is that place that is going to be our main pivot point for at least a while here. This is the main one we're going to use, because then we get to go ahead and we get to pivot off of that and end up with an accurate replication of all of those places on that horizontal line. See this horizontal line up here. Now, how far we put this out from this is going to determine the size ratio, and it'll be accurate and true all the way through. You never have to worry about measuring anything again. It's just a great opportunity, to keep everything on the same percentage increase or decrease, whatever you happen to be working on. So I'm going to go to the inside of the iris. And there's going to be little things that I might want to correct along the way, because maybe I wasn't completely accurate, or maybe the width of the pencil even, could change how accurate it's going to be. You want to make sure you're keeping a sharp pencil so you can be very, very pointed in your reference ticks on here, your reference points. So how am I going to do it? I'm going to go to this pivot point down here at the chin that we established. I drew a circle around it. And then I'm going to go up to the place I want to find that intersects that line. And then I'm going to slide this, because remember, we mounted this on an additional piece of scrap paper, the same thickness, same paper. So it isn't going to really help you a whole lot if you just find two pieces of, another copy paper and put the print on that, because it still won't be thick enough. But look at how nicely that slides. And if you've ever done it before without that, you'll appreciate the opportunity to just slide it along. So here we have the iris on the right side of that left eye, and that's where it intersects this line. So one of the things I did in the last time we talked is I didn't pay attention when I went to make my little mark. I want to make sure that I'm putting this in the same orientation. Not like this, not like that, not what I think it is, but lay this in the same angle, orientation, and just quickly document what I just did. So I want to just do a little bit, because I want to be able to shape it and know the height and everything a little later. But I didn't mark this immediately and remind myself what I was trying to draw last time, and so I ended up by making this something else, and I had to go back and erase it. I don't know whether you remember that. But okay, so let's go ahead and find the left side of the iris. Let's go ahead and come down here. Oh, I need to get out a little bit more. So let's come down to our pivot point again. Remember, we're just going to, everything is going to line up with that pivot point, or the angle is going to come off of that pivot point, and then it's going to intersect that line. And we're going to virtually perfectly pinpoint where each one of those places are accurately. If we keep this parallel, if we don't have it, if it gets up a little bit like this, oh, this is going to multiply. If you're off a little bit here, that's going to be much worse way out there, probably 2 or 3 times off. So I want to make sure that I really make, take the care. It's worth it. And then I'll see, where's it tick that? Okay. There's my reference point for the other side of the iris. So now let's take a look and see how this one intersected and see the angle on that. Oh, it looks like it's tilted a little bit this way. Just ever so slightly. Boy, it's so important when you're working on a round iris. She's looking directly at us, and that's one of the wonderful things about we can watch for, is to make sure that her irises are perfectly round. So it's going to make a difference. I don't want to just put a mark on here. I want to know which way is this angling as it goes through there. Is it the widest point of that iris? What's going to do it? Okay, let's come back out. So let's get the inside, the corner of her tear duct. This is the outside corner. It's this part right here, not somewhere else in the tear duct, but the outside corner, the inside corner, I mean, closest to the bridge of her nose. And then I'll have the width of her eye. And that'll help me better identify the different parts of her eye, like the iris and those kinds of things too, become clearer and clearer as to what I'm trying to represent. Okay. So here we are with that. So now I want to remind myself what that was. And so it intersects that tear duct just perfectly, that corner of the eye. So I'm just going to remind myself, I think that I can duplicate this angle here pretty well. And so now I have an idea. This is where my eye is. Now remember, I'm doing it a lot darker for you. And I've also made these bearing lines much darker. You want to make these very, very light so that you can easily get them off. You don't want to press hard. Not just do it with a light pencil and press hard, but it's real easy to try to be accurate and go back and forth, and you're just going to put that graphite into the paper to the point where you're not going to be able to erase it very well. And so if you can, drag your pencil this way, don't push it back. And also to keep these very light, even these things very light. You don't want these to be, you don't want a big dot in the middle of your final drawing that you never could get rid of. And so, but I still have to make these things dark enough that you can see them. So just realize I'm exaggerating. Let's go over to the right side and see what we can do over here. Let's get that inside corner to her eye. Let's just work our way from left to right and see where that is intersecting that. Okay, so we're going to slide this along until we come to that same bearing point, and then it's automatically going to be at exactly the right ratio and everything as we find the inside corner of that eye. So I find that on this one, it seemed to intersect the very corner of the eye. On this one, it looks like the lid went down. I mean, that little corner went down a little bit. So actually, the corner is a little bit farther down. So I'm just going to remind myself about that. I want to know what I'm drawing, and I want to know the angle. May perfect it a little bit and change it. But there I've got that corner of the eye. All right, let's go ahead and go to this one. And let's find the iris on this one. Remember, this is our constant. That pivot point that we established on her chin is our constant here. That's one that's never going to change. And I'm going to come along here, and I'm going to slide this along until it matches the one we have on the paper. That is the replica of the one down below, that pivot point on our reference. And now we are going to be able to see that iris is right there. That's where it intersects the line. I think this is interesting because this is something. Just the reason I think it's interesting is because it gives me an opportunity to say, pay attention, because this time, instead of the iris, that iris being pretty much at its widest point here, this one is going to be a little bit different. I want to pay attention to that. I want to duplicate that a little bit different. It's going to make a big difference on how it's positioned in the opening of the eye. So I want to document that just a little bit, that it's a little bit of an angle as it intersects that line. Let's go to the other side of that iris. Cool. Now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to find that bearing point, that pivot point. Initially, this is extremely an important one, but we're going to replace it in a little bit, just a little bit. I'm just going to show you a little bit more. We're going to replace that and start establishing another bearing line. Very easy. Don't get confused. It's just going to be very easy, I think, to figure this out. So let's go ahead and see how the iris is intersecting this particular place. Well, it looks like it's on the downhill, so it's coming a little bit like so. And I have this thing right there. If I need to look at this thing more directly and just sight right up there like you're lining up fence posts or something, then I think it would be easier to probably duplicate it. I might alter that a little bit when I find out how high and how low the eye is, where it disappears underneath the eyelid. This one seems to sit right on it, but you want to pay attention to that too. The bottom part of the circle on both of these are very round and accurate. Often you won't see that. You'll see the eyelid covering up at least a little portion of it, and there might be a little flatness to it, a little piece of it, hidden. And so you want to pay attention to that too. Let's go out to the outside corner. We'll just do 2 or 3 more, and then we'll have the opportunity to shift over and do the vertical line. And that's when we establish a new bearing pivot point. Let's see. Okay. So let's come over here. Going to find our bearing point. All right. So here is the corner of her eye. And let me just see what this looks like here. I'm going to find just a couple more here. And it seemed to split that right at the corner. That's because when I originally set it up, it was I ran it from corner to corner. So this corner to that corner. So here we have our 2 eyes. Looks kind of strange with this round circle in here. But let's go ahead and now look at opportunity to establish another bearing pivot point. Let's go ahead and just come out here. Because we're going to find the side of her head where it intersects, this part of the hair. Go ahead and do that one. Okay. Well, sometimes we'll run out of paper, and that gets a little interesting. But there's always a way to get there eventually. So you have to be kind of careful because there's not that much, and you could end up by, if you're not paying attention, to have this pivot on that paper a little bit, because there's so little of it. But I think we've got enough of it, and we could use another edge if we wanted to. Okay, so here's the side of her head, her hair. Okay, this is going to become our brand new pivot point. We may use this again, but now we want to have this one out here. So now we're going to turn our paper like this. And now I get to find out where her lips are on that. So here we have this this line out here. Should have done this. And I hope this will be accurate with me not establishing that in the first place. But let's go ahead and now find out what we can intersect on that vertical line. Okay, let's go to division of her lips. That'll be good. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to intersect our new bearing line, or our pivot point, our bearing point. And now this is where her lips are. Let's see if we can find the angle. I'm going to put this up here, and it's a little bit of a tilt. Maybe it's not right at that point. But okay, let's find the top of her lip. Now we're going to even have more opportunity to find, the height and the lowest point and the thickness and all those different things. So let's go ahead and come over. Don't even have to worry about where this is. All I have to do is find my bearing point. And so here is the height of her Cupid's bow. And then what is going to be the angle? Well, I'm going to document that. Okay, let's find the end of her nose. Let's go over here and find how long her nose is. A little bit soft in there. Maybe you have to kind of guess a little bit and modify it later. But here we're going to go ahead and find that pivot point. Oh, it's so easy. Look at that. As long as you pay attention and keep your straight edge in the right place, here is the bottom of her nose. And we can go along and find all the different points we want. I did one a little while ago. I mean, I don't care where it is. If you want to find like I said, a dot out here, if I can find this dot, I can surely find any place. I could put a dot anywhere I think is going to be an important place for me to find. Maybe it's the V in the hair right here. I can find that. You know how? Because now I can go ahead and find how I can run an extra length to a line. I can come up here. Let's go out wide again. Sorry, this is so cumbersome. If I was sitting right next to you, it'd be maybe a little easier. But if you just grasp this concept, I think it'll be fine. So I'm going to find out where that is. This time, I don't have an anchor line, so I'm still going to come off of this, and I'm now going to run a little longer line up here, just very lightly. And all I want to do is find out where on this particular place can we intersect this. So now let me come over here. And we'll find that we can intersect that by coming to this one and going to that particular place I put the dot, finding where that V is. Exciting. And boy, you could feel so lost if you didn't have a way, to establish this. So here's that V. I made a lot more length to the line than I needed to because I wasn't sure, but that's what you want to do. So here's our V. And I can come up here now and put this in the right angle. Let's see. Let's go like this for that lock of hair. And, like so. And now I have an opportunity to get another bearing point. And I hope that you can see I can plot my eyebrows exactly like that. I can put a dot anywhere I want as long as you can establish it on this small one. Let's see, it's underneath. As long as you can establish where it is on here, you can find it and duplicate it on your large drawing. So we can go over and find the other side of her hair. We can do this and find exactly where that is. And we can go ahead and find the corners of her mouth. How great. See, if I'm going to find the corners of her mouth, I can have a dot and I can come from two different points, and that's going to be the corner. So then, when we already have this established, and we have this established, then we can start creating a curve. And if you don't feel happy with the fact you've got to now guess at what kind of a curve, you could put little dots along every place and create a perfect curve. You can do that with the top of her, that high part of her lip. And over here, you can find out exactly where that is. You can do each finger. You can have any opportunity you want to document every single place. If you're not comfortable with drawing a curve after you get a few things established, then put a point here, pretty straight here, but I can go ahead and modify that. You see just a slight curve to it, and I can come down here and I can put a couple more plot points on here, and I can find exactly where that curve turns, exactly where it's kind of straight. And then if you don't know whether it's straight or not, this is a wonderful thing too, because you can put your straight edge between 2 points, 2 anchor points, where their earlobe hides behind her face, goes behind or attaches to her face. And then I can see how much of a curve that is. Look at how much easier it is when I can compare it to something. And now I have a chance. If I've already found this and I found that, then I can go ahead and duplicate that curve by looking at it. And then I won't have something that bows way out or it is too straight. Sometimes it's amazing how our minds can go ahead and play tricks on us, and it can seem like it is straighter than it actually is. And this way it'll help us find that subtle little curve that almost every face or natural created part is going to have, because it's going to have the natural contour and elegance of curve. We get into manufactured things and we start having straight edges. Well, we have a computer, we have a tablet, we have an envelope, anything like that is going to start having, clean edges. But there's nothing in nature that is like that, absolutely nothing. So I think it's very, very interesting and an opportunity for us to capture the essence of, our drawing, especially with the things like tilts. Look at how that nice tilt. That's a little turn of her head that just says, oh, that's interesting. It just changes the whole attitude. There's so many subtle little things that we can include. The eyes can have so many different expressions just with the slightest little, flex of the muscles of your eye or the eyelid, and suddenly you have a completely different attitude. And yet it doesn't seem like it moved that much. So it's fun to look for these things and find all these little key elements. And then later on, you can start, erasing the extra lines you have in here, especially if you have them lighter, and you're left with all of your brand new little angles and the parts where you connected the dots and found out where that curve was and how high the lips were and all of that. So anyway, I hope that this will be a little bit of an opportunity for you to feel a little more comfortable. I took a little bit more time than I often have to explain it. And you can feel a little more comfortable about the possibilities. And if you can understand the possibilities and the concept and the premise that we're coming from, then you have that opportunity to understand a little bit more about how to try and achieve it by watching this method. So anyway, I hope that answers a little bit of the question. Now we have our vertical and our horizontal main lines that we made. And we found some important features, and it can just continue on until we shape our drawing. There's far more on this sheet of paper than you might think, too. And many of you have probably done a dot-to-dot kind of a opportunity to create something when you were a child or something. Maybe there's a little puzzle like that in some child's paper or something, or at school, and you start connecting the dots, and suddenly something wonderful appears that you never recognized until you connected them all. So anyway, hope that helps.
All right. Well, things are starting to come together, and I hate to cut it short, but we're going to be back with part 3 of this series. That's our third and final video. And in that video, Daryl's going to take this even further. We'll get to see what it looks like to have all of these points connected. And we'll also get to the divider portion of the straight edge and divider method. And we'll see how this simple tool can be used to take accurate measurements throughout the entire drawing process. So you don't get to the very end and say, oops, and have to start all over. So that's our third and final video. We hope you can join us for that. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever it may be, we'd like you to leave them below this video. Let us know. Give us a little feedback. And pay attention to your email, because you'll get a link to the next video coming up soon. And again, hope to see you there. Thanks for joining us.